Welcome to JHart Modelworks. It's time for update number 4 on the Tamiya Nissan Fairlady 240ZG buddy build with Shawn. Welcome to my workbench. Let's get started. Hey guys, Justin here with JHart Modelworks. Like the intro said, it is time for another update on the Nissan 240ZG buddy build that I'm doing with Shawn from the Scale Model Car Guy channel. If you are not subscribed to Shawn, please check out the link below. Go check out his channel. He's got some fantastic stuff on there. He's doing a great job on his build, knocking it out of the park. I think he's almost done on his end. But he's also got a ton of other stuff on his channel too. You know, some great builders that he goes and checks out their builds with. Stash ads. He goes all sorts of places like antique shops, finding awesome old antique kits to add to the stash. Definitely worth giving his channel a check out. On to the 240. There's been a lot of progress on the engine bay. The engine bay is almost done. I know I said I wanted to have the engine bay wrapped up by the end of, by this video, and the goal is still to have it wrapped up by the end of this video. All I have left is really to get the radiator assembly in, as well as a few associated radiator type parts like a hose and whatnot. And then there's a couple of parts that need to go on the end of the side of the chassis, but I wanted to go ahead and stop where I'm at before the radiator goes in and check out some of the detail that we got going on before it gets lost, because the radiator is going to block a bit. It's going to be a little easier to see before that goes in. So with all that said, let's go ahead and get this camera switched around and we'll take a look at where we're at. Alright guys, here we are, and like I said, we have made a lot of progress. The engine is done. The engine bay is mostly done, and we got a lot of detail in here to kind of go over real quick. The engine is in, which is where we were about at last time on the last video. Was waiting on the engine to go in. We have our carburetors in here. We have our fuel rail, which was there before. We have added the throttle linkage. And I tried using some photo etch, and I just got frustrated with it. What I ended up doing was printing off modeling in Rhino 3 standoffs to raise up a pin, and then 3 of these little arms. I kind of want to add a little bit more detail, but it just didn't work out for me. And then I just ran a insect pin through all these little parts to create my linkage. So those little linkages just kind of sit on there. So our throttle linkage is done. We have our battery in, which this is a 3D printed Optima. Added some wires in here. The model that I found for the Optima battery, this is a really nice version. The top actually is a separate piece from the body, so that you can paint them separately. It also has the front ports if you wanted to do front post instead of top post. And I just used my decals. I've made some decals for the Optimas. We have our plugs fully wired up now. And our ignition coil is now run up over here. I just used a little bit of this MIG ammo aluminum foil sheet to simulate a bracket there. Now, since we have the carburetors in here and we replaced the kit carburetors and we replaced the kit airbox, there was nowhere for the oil vent line to run. So I have actually got this run in with some Protect braided line to a oil catch can. And then it runs back down, neatly down there, back towards the lower end of the engine block. So coming in on this side also, we have gone ahead and we have finished out our fuel line. We have a line that runs down from the other side of the fuel pump back down towards the back of the car. It's not all the way back, because if you actually look on these, the fuel line isn't visible on the underside. So I've just kind of got it stubbed in here so it disappears, but it looks the part. What else do we have? We also have some heater hoses running here. We have the lower hose that runs in and goes to the bottom of the engine block. And then this upper hose runs across here, comes and tucks back in behind the dipstick and runs up to the water pump. So all of that is run into place correctly. We do have an alternator bracket, no floating alternators ever, don't like that. I did find that I needed to take the fan, the photo etch fan off and file this back quite a bit because the fan was just sticking too far out and was bumping into my radiator, so I scooted that back a little bit. And I went ahead and I added the little light. There's a light on the old 240s in the engine bay. So I just basically drilled out the end of some plastic rod, filed the end smooth so it would kind of make like a bell shape, ran some wire out the back, painted it gold, and then used some UV glue, basically some Bondic, to just make the little light bulb and cured it there. So I thought that was a cool little bit of added detail in there. I probably could have scooted the catch cam back a little bit. Instead of putting it right there on there, I probably could have scooted it back a little bit. I was initially going to put it over here, but the ignition coil got in the way, and then it would be in the way with all the carburetors, so I decided to move it to this side. And without really thinking too much about it, I mean, I probably could have fit it in here, but it's pretty good where it's at. I'm pretty happy with it. All in all, I'm very happy with the way the engine is turning out. Everything is seated all the way down. Everything's seated nicely and in place. As for the radiator assembly itself, we do have the radiator. And there's some photo etch in here from the Hobby Design set. So we've got these grills. And we have this fan. Now, I made a mistake. I built the fan up. I put the grills on the radiator. And then I put the fan in the radiator. And then tried to fit it in through the hole. And it doesn't fit right. Especially if you put it... If you line the holes for the fan up with the holes on the photo etch, then you start running into problems where this upper bar for the radiator support runs into the fan and the radiator won't glue into place. So I ended up having to break that back off, and what I did was I glued the radiator in place and then I glued the fan in through the front, and it sits perfectly inside that little opening. So if you're ever doing this, do this fan separately and then glue it in from the front. That's several pieces of photo etch layered on top. There's 1, 2, front grille, outer ring, fan, another outer ring. I think there's like 5 layers of photo etch to that, but it comes out really, really nice. You can kind of see the fan blades back in there behind it. Now, some things went wrong with the radiator cap. For starters, I lost it. I painted it, and I don't remember what happened to it after I painted it. It just disappeared. Now, Hobby Design has a photo etch cap that is supposed to, I think it's supposed to go on top of the original kit cap, which I lost. On top of that, their cap is a 2-piece cap. There's a photo etch piece that has no design on it at all. It's just the outside shape of the cap. Then there's another piece that's the exact same shape, but it actually has kind of like these indentions in it to give you that cap detail. And you're supposed to glue one right on top of the other. And you're supposed to line them up. And they're that small. And by the time the super glue set, the super glue set almost as soon as the 2 parts were together, I didn't get them lined up. It looked absolutely terrible. So what I did was I went with the large oil caps, which are these 3.3 millimeter oil caps from Small Great Details. This has some real nice detail to them. And I glued a small piece of 2mm plastic rod to the back of it. And I glued that down to give me a little bit of a cap lift there. And that also gave me some room to run some copper wire in here for the overflow drain, which I just grabbed an old piece of wire off of some Cat 5 cable that I have. Just some wire, just some networking cables, got some copper wire in it. Telephone cable does the same thing. And you just basically cut it and then glue it down and bend it around the side of your radiator there, and that gives you your overflow, which adds a really nice little bit of detail with very minimum effort. That is one of those super wins when it comes to model building. Little stuff like this gets a lot of attention. So yeah, all that really needs to happen at this point is we need to go ahead and get that glued into place. And then just kind of there's a hose that needs to get glued in here and some corner pieces. And then some stuff that needs to get done on the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and get that taken care of, and I'll be back in a second. Alright guys, I am back, and the engine bay and chassis are now officially complete. Our radiator is in. We've also got our horns in. These little corner vent pieces in here. There's a slight bit of fit issue with this radiator hose, but it's a fit issue that I caused. This is not the original distributor. This is a 3D printed one that is considerably larger than the original distributor, so it just rubs up against that hose, but I did manage to get it in there. So that's going to wrap up the engine bay. On the underside of the chassis, we added in the skid plate. We have our exhaust installed. We have our fuel tank in that we had 3D printed because we melted the original. And you can barely see it in there. But there is a fuel line running out of the tank. It just disappears under the rear axle. Now the tailpipe, the exhaust tip is not in. We'll put that in during final assembly. I don't want to run the risk of breaking that off while I'm trying to get this mated into the body later on. But that's going to go ahead and wrap up the engine and chassis part of this build. And it's going to wrap up this update for this video. Next steps, I'm going to go ahead and move into the interior, but right now I'm waiting on paint. I've got an order on some paint, some zero paints from Hobby World USA, but that's for another week. Thanks for hanging out with me, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Boop. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button. Also, feel free to leave comments, feedback, critique, or anything else in the comment section below. I enjoy interacting with all my viewers in the comment section and try to reply to all the comments I receive. If you want to catch future videos, please consider subscribing to my channel and make sure you click the bell notification icon so you can be notified when I upload new videos. As always, thank you for watching, keep modeling, and have a great day.